So my name's Michael Anderson. I'm originally from Manchester in the UK. I'm currently a full-time MBA student at the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. Before my MBA, I originally did a mechanical engineering degree, and I've spent sort of 6 or 7 years working in technical sales positions in different industries, industrial industries, and I've worked predominantly in the UK, but I also worked for a year in Oman in the Middle East. With an engineering background, it's certainly beneficial when you work in manufacturing industries, but when you work in a more commercial job role, there does come a point where I think you start to think about what other potential job roles you could do, and also just having a bit more business knowledge. You know, for instance, in sales, you often work a little bit in marketing as well, and I'd never studied anything to do with marketing. I'd never studied anything really in finance, and yeah, I guess to a point where you start to look at, you know, where will my career be in 10 years time maybe, and I think it would be really beneficial to have some sort of a business background. Yeah, at the same time, it also opens up other industries aside from just manufacturing, and yeah, just some more job roles. Because, you know, you never know what direction you'll actually enjoy when you study something new. The companies I've previously worked for typically had a European headquarters in Western Germany. I also think that doing an MBA is a good chance to go and live abroad and be an international student. So for me personally, I looked at Northern Europe as the obvious places. It's not too far away from home, and just looked at the universities with the triple accreditations for the MBA programs. And yeah, eventually just settled on Frankfurt because I guess it is still the business center of the EU, and the business school is very well ranked in most of its other programs as well. So yeah, I just thought that it was a nice fit for kind of what I was looking for. I guess the other thing was how well Frankfurt School looks after its alumni. So they have a lot of networking events with alumni, and a lot of alumni come here as guest speakers to talk about their experiences since they graduated. And on the MBA course specifically, they also have a concept called lifelong learning, where after you graduate, you are able to still take part in some of the electives that you didn't do during your course. So for example, there was 2 people in my digital marketing elective this year who actually graduated in 2020, but they both since moved into marketing roles, and they were able to come and join the class for a week and learn everything we learned as if they were current students. So there's not many universities that offer that sort of interaction with alumni, and I think that's one of the best things about the course, because, you know, it depends what direction I take personally. I might also make use of that at some point. So Frankfurt's a pretty international city. Like, I think a lot of people fear moving to Germany. They might have to speak fluent German or reasonably good German, which is not the case at all if you live in the city centre. It's such an international business hub that a lot of big businesses here have their working language in English. If you go to restaurants and bars, most people will speak English. You know, at the university as well, a lot of courses, particularly master's courses, are taught in English. Culturally, for me personally, it's not that different from the UK. Maybe if I went to a slightly smaller city in Germany, it would be a bit different, but for anybody who's looking to move here from outside the EU, it's in my opinion, you know, a pretty safe place to come to when you consider those things, because it's quite easy to climatize to. It's you know, it's got a lot of open space. It's not just skyscrapers like some cities, and I think maybe that's the misconception people have about Frankfurt, because it's marketed as like the business center. So, you know, I would also personally say, coming from the UK, the weather is distinctly better here than it is in England. So Yeah, I would highly recommend it to anybody who's not familiar. Yeah, so in our program we have sort of 6 or 7 months of core modules, and then we have 3 months of electives before we do a consulting project for the last part. So in the electives you can choose to specialize in either finance or general management, or I think sustainability is the other track. So I kind of mixed and matched a few different things. You know, having never done finance before, I wanted to try and do a few finance modules to get as good an overview of finance as possible. So I did an elective in mergers and acquisitions, and I did one in capital markets. But then I also did one in digital marketing, which is totally different. So there is a bit of scope in our program to sort of fine-tune it to how you want the program to be. Marketing is probably the easiest one to understand from a concept point of view. I think, especially digital marketing, I think everybody has a vague idea of what it's like because we all use social media. Having said that, there's a lot of data in marketing to work through, and actually doing the group project took a long time. And we worked with an external company to do a project. But then for the other 2 modules, the finance modules, are a little more difficult sometimes to understand, especially if you haven't studied finance before. But you know, it's at the same time as it's a little bit easier maybe in terms of the time you need to put into it, because you know, there are a lot of resources available. It's just about knowing where to find them. On our course, we spend, at the end of our core modules, we go to Milan in Italy for a week to the Bocconi Business School as like an exchange week, and then their students come to Frankfurt. Yeah, and that was you know, completely different from every other week that we have, because we were doing a course focused on luxury goods and innovation. And during that week, we went to visit the Ferrari factory, and we went to visit a family-run balsamic vinegar business, which is a small business, but it was on like a lovely country estate. And yeah, I just think the whole week of being in a different place and learning from different professors, and you know, seeing how the business school works was quite nice. And obviously being in the center of Milan, it was quite a nice week outside of class as well. To give an overview of it, in the final 3 months of the MBA at Frankfurt School, you can either do a group consulting project where 3 or 4 students will work on a project that's provided by an external company, or you can do an entrepreneurial business plan, or you can do just an individual, more scientific style research project. So personally, I'm doing the group consulting project, and I'm currently working with a non-profit organization. The organization is called the Crop Trust, and their core business is they exist to sort of protect plant and crop species around the world. So they have a lot of like seed banks where they collect kind of rare or endangered species of plants, and I guess the kind of idea of the business is to make sure that firstly no crops or things go extinct, and also they collect a lot of data on different plants and seeds and things, so that if a part of the world is, for instance, affected by climate change, they might be able to offer a solution that will allow that part of the world to keep having similar plants and crops growing. So we had a few different options for projects to pick, and there were different companies available. Speaking with my colleagues as well of what they wanted to do, the fact that it was, even though it's a non-profit, we're still essentially producing a business plan and coming up with a strategy. And I guess it goes back to the point of saying, you know, when you do an MBA, it's about trying things you haven't done before. And all of us thought, well, none of us would have worked with a non-profit before probably, and it's the first opportunity any of us have really had to have a project like that, where we're still doing the business plan as usual you would with a for-profit company, but it's just in a non-profit area. And yeah, it's been interesting as a topic to learn about, because like you said, I wouldn't have even known this non-profit existed before, and it's surprised me just how interesting some of this stuff can actually be when you dig into it. I'd be much more confident now applying for different job roles and maybe into different industries as well. You know, I like to look at an MBA as it's not making you an expert in all of the subjects you study, but it's giving you a really, really good summary of everything. So that within reason, if you were working in a large company, you could understand the senior managers and directors from any department. You'd understand what they were talking about, and you could have an active contribution there. So, you know, for me, part of the point of doing an MBA was to sort of expand the job roles available to me, and I feel like even now I'm starting to apply for jobs to start in September, and I'm already looking at not just one industry and not just manufacturing. You know, personally, I'm also looking at some consulting roles, some fast-moving consumer goods roles. So I think that's the thing that's changed, is just having more options available and being able to take advantage of them. It's a difficult question to answer, because a lot of industries have their plus points and their minus points, but in an ideal world, I'm planning on staying in Germany. So logically, I would say probably manufacturing is still at the top of the list in terms of industry, just because it fits with my previous professional background as well. With that said, obviously in Germany, they have companies like Adidas and Puma, which are multi-billion-dollar companies that are kind of manufacturing and kind of consumer goods. And then obviously being in Frankfurt, there are a lot of consulting positions available here. So yeah, I wouldn't say I have a massive preference either way, and a little bit depends on the job market as well, obviously. So yeah, a bit of a mystery still.